This is the story of the one. As a custodial supervisor at a high school, he knows that during cold and flu season, germs spread fast. It's why he partners with Grainger to stay fully stocked on the products and supplies he needs, from tissues to disinfectants to floor scrubbers. All so that he can help students, staff, and teachers stay healthy and focused. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Americans love scenery. We want to see it all, from one coast to the next, Mount Rushmore down to the Everglades. So hop into a Chevy Malibu and take the scenic route. It's the car you knew America could build. There's a place where people count on friendships they can trace back generations, where they can count on the same stool at the coffee shop waiting for them every morning. This place is called Glen Ellen, and you can find it in every bottle of Glen Ellen wine. This is craft brewed Herman Joseph's, the smoothest, easiest drinking specialty beer in the entire solar system. And I believe you'll find drinkable in the dictionary right after don't order a beer you can't drink. Zoingo! Boingo! The freestyle pogo with more boing, more bounce. Bounce further, bounce higher with Zoingo Boingo. To see what makes Arrowhead Mountain Spring water different from those other waters, you have to go back to the source. And with Arrowhead, that means going back a little farther and longer than most. Between security challenged and security strengthened, there's one important word: how. And it is the how that makes all the difference to our nation and our world. Lockheed Martin. We never forget who we're working for. What makes Kraft Singles so good? 2 out of every 3 kids don't get the recommended amount of calcium. But with Kraft Singles, they get a good source of calcium and the taste they love. Kraft Singles. Magic every single time. Throw boring overboard with a new real meal from Long John Silver's. A meal worthy of a plate. Just $4.99. Only at Long John Silver's. We may not all be geniuses, but we can all do something smart. Introducing the Hyundai 199 Sonata Lease. It's a smart deal on a really smart car.
Chicago's a drinking town. And I'm a drinker. Now I live in LA. It's more of a rehab town. People in LA go to rehab for wine. Like, I drink a bottle of wine a day. I'm like, yeah, so does my mom. Like, yeah, but I take pills. I'm like, yeah, so does my mom.
Good morning. It's Thursday, Jordan Peterson Thursday, September the 11th. And this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have, we will have Varney and Company, motivation, meditation, and Jordan Peterson. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. Now, a little bit of Stu Varney.
I'm sending it over to Stuart Varney. Stuart, good morning.
Good morning, Cheryl, and good morning, everyone. It was an assassination. A single bullet killed Charlie Kirk. The shooter has not been identified or detained, but he was seen on a roof right before the shooting, wearing all black and a black tactical helmet. The president has responded with grief and anger. Some commentators have made callous comments. An attempt to pray out loud on the floor of the House of Representatives was shouted down. Throughout the program today, you will see and hear what Charlie stood for. That is, free speech, open debate, faith, and optimism about America's future. That is his legacy. There is other news. Here's the latest on inflation. In August, consumer prices went up 0.4%, a little more than expected. In the last 12 months, prices up 2.9%, right in line with what was expected. And here's the market's response. Plenty of green. The Dow Industrial is up 135, S&P up 18, NASDAQ up 81 points. Interest rates, very important, going down. That's largely because there was a big jump in jobless claims, which implies real weakness in the labor market. The yield on the 10-year Treasury right now just a tad above 4%. And the yield on the 2-year, that's right at 3.5%. Bitcoin, firm, 113.9 is the price for now. Oil coming in at $62 a barrel, down a little. All right, on the show today, our coverage of 9/11, 24 years on. First responders still feeling the effects of their exposure to the toxic dust that followed the collapse of the Twin Towers. The outrage lives on. It is a difficult day. It is Thursday, September 11th, 2025. And now this.
And that was Varney and Company, Nonprofit News Now. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, a little meditation.
Welcome to this chakra energy balancing meditation with Archangel Michael. Find a comfortable position, either sitting cross-legged or lying down. Place your hands gently on your lap or beside you. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in and slowly exhale. Inhale calm. Exhale all tension. Inhale light. Exhale any negative energy. Breathe naturally and let your awareness settle into this moment. Now, imagine a radiant violet light surrounding you. This is the loving presence of Archangel Michael. Silently or aloud, say, "Greetings to you, Archangel Michael. Thank you for standing by my side today, guiding me with divine light and balancing my energy. May love and purity flow through me now." Feel a wave of violet light entering through the crown of your head. As it touches your crown chakra, it transforms into streams of golden and white light, cleansing and balancing your energy. The light flows down into your third eye chakra, bringing clarity, intuition, and vision. It moves gently into your throat chakra, clearing your voice and truth. Now into your heart chakra, releasing pain and filling you with love and compassion. The energy flows into your solar plexus chakra, dissolving fear, control, and attachments. Archangel Michael's sword of violet flame cuts away any cords that no longer serve you, replacing them with divine love. The light enters your sacral chakra, cleansing any negative ties from past relationships, bringing creativity and joy. Finally, it settles into your root chakra, grounding you in safety, stability, and trust. Notice the violet flame surrounding your entire body, while the white light within each chakra balances, heals, and restores your entire being. Take a deep breath in. Exhale and release any remaining heaviness. Place your hand over your heart and silently thank Archangel Michael. Thank you for balancing my chakras, for protecting me and filling me with divine love. Gently smile. Breathe deeply one more time. And when you are ready, open your eyes. Carry this light and balance with you throughout your day. Thank you for being here. See you in the next meditation.
And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, motivation.
Some of you right now, you only work when it's easy. You only work when you feel like it. You only work when it's convenient.
But if you don't feel like getting after it, I hope you feel like being weak. I hope you feel like not accomplishing anything, because that's what's going to happen.
You will not blow up. The vision won't become a reality for you because you don't show up every day. You show up when you feel like it.
If you can only execute when you feel like executing, you will fucking lose 100 times out of 100.
You gotta stop giving yourself a pass. I have watched people go after people in a way they never go after themselves. I have watched people judge people. Why they doing this or why they doing that? And this is terrible and that's terrible. They should be doing this and shit. But the same energy that you get on people, the same judgment you use, the same critique and criticizing you don't do it for yourself. So I need you to turn yourself in the mirror and look in that mirror and stop giving you a pass. You give you a pass. You are not where you're supposed to be financially, and you can give yourself a pass. You know you better than that. You know you should be further in life, but you keep letting you slide. I need you to check yourself and change yourself and critique yourself. At some point, you gotta buckle down, and it starts with you looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I'm not getting up on time. I'm not going to work on time. I'm not putting in 120% when I'm at work. I let me down, and in order to get to where I want to get to, I need to discipline myself and maintain that discipline. Discipline means that you dominate when you feel like it, and you dominate when you don't feel like it. Stop waiting for life to move you, and you move you. Every day, move yourself. You gotta take control of your life. When you gonna wake up? What you gonna do when you up? You got to take control.
Because in this day and age, if you aren't careful, it's real easy to slide into cruise control mode. Don't do that with your life. Don't get on the road and just kind of let the car drive itself. When that's happening, you're not directing what's going on. You're not in control anymore. You're just drifting. It's not going where you want it to go. It's just going wherever it's going. Unintentional. So what are you supposed to do? I'll tell you what we're supposed to do. Go to manual mode. That's what you have to do. If you go in cruise control, you will scroll until you to go into manual mode. You have to turn the trash off. Because if you don't go into manual mode, I'll tell you what's going to take over. Your natural, psychological, and physiological instincts will take over. They'll follow the path of least resistance. Don't let that happen. You have to deny these things from happening. Don't allow yourself to be a victim of your environment. You think things are going to just go your way? Well, they're not going to just go your way. You think things are going to just happen for you? Well, they're not just going to happen for you. You got to impose your will. You got to be disciplined, and you got to make things happen. Go make things happen.
When you don't feel like getting up in the morning, you get your butt up in the morning, you do what you said you were going to do anyway. When you don't feel like sacrificing, you get your butt up and you sacrifice anyway. When you don't feel like being dedicated to it, you stay your butt dedicated anyway because you understand what the process will go on to produce later on in your life. It's not about the outcome. Eliminate the outcome. And we have to get to the point where we're willing to impose our will on certain things. Impose your will on it. It's just as if you were facing an opponent. Life will give in to you if it knows you're serious about whatever it is that you're trying to do. Life will give in to you.
Any dream becomes a reality if you put the work ethic, the dedication, and sacrifice into it. When you're dead and exhausted like this, I should put a smile on your face, man. Because now you're doing something in your life. In the beginning, things are going to be fucking hard. You're going to have a hard time winning today. You're going to have a hard time getting through the day, doing everything you need to do. You're going to have a hard time doing those workouts or sending all those emails or making the calls you need to make. That is going to seem extremely difficult on day one. But here's the thing. Once you get through day one and you get through day two and you get through day three, it starts to become habit because you start believing in yourself. You can look back and say, look, I got 7 straight days of winning the day, and you know what? I know I can win tomorrow, so you start to believe. And guess what? When you start to believe, that's when the fucking magic happens. Once you start working consistently, momentum begins to carry you, it begins to pick you up. And if you string enough good days, productive days, hard-working days, pursuing success, you can ride that momentum anywhere you want to go.
Your work starts working for you. The efforts that you put forth, the things that you do, those things start working for you. And while you sleep and while you chilling, because of the work you put in, things just start happening for you. When you get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, are there days you don't feel like it? I'm talking about less than 1%. I've been getting up so early for so long. I've dominated my sleep pattern. I've dominated my laziness. I've dominated procrastination. I've dominated so much. My body just clicked at 3 o'clock in the morning. Discipline. People who do stuff consistently and on time, they surpass people who talented and gifted.
If you do the fucking work, you will produce the result. But so many of you still believe that it's luck. It doesn't work that way. And you can either choose to go on with your life buying that story, or you can choose to embrace the fucking work right now and move down the path, take your beatings, get better from them, and become what it is that you are supposed to become.
Download. And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Jordan Peterson.
Let me tell you something about narcissists. They're not just difficult people. They're dangerous. They erode relationships, distort reality, and feed on the admiration of others like parasites feeding on the host. And if you've ever dealt with one closely, perhaps in your family, your workplace, or even in an intimate relationship, you'll know exactly what I mean. Narcissists feed off validation the way a predator feeds off its prey, not with gratitude, but with entitlement. They require attention, admiration, and emotional energy in a way that is nearly parasitic. When you praise them, agree with them, or even react to them positively or negatively, you are giving them something they crave, evidence that they matter more than you, that you are in some way orbiting their self-centered universe. To starve them of validation then is to strike at the very heart of their psychological machinery. It's a slow form of psychological torture, not because you're being cruel, but because you're denying them their drug. Now, this isn't just about withholding compliments or pretending they don't exist. It's deeper than that. It's about reclaiming your internal world. The narcissist thrives on your emotional responsiveness. If they say something grandiose and you nod in approval, you've fed them. If they say something cruel and you get angry, you've also fed them. It's not just praise they want, it's reaction, attention. Being the center of your focus, you validate their identity, even the negative aspects of it, by giving your emotional energy to them. And you need to understand this dynamic if you're ever going to break free from it. You see, when you remove validation, you're not simply ignoring the narcissist, you're removing the mirror they use to see themselves. They don't have a stable sense of identity, not in the way psychologically integrated people do. Their self-worth is constantly in flux, and so they rely on others to reflect back to them an inflated, idealized image of who they are. That reflection doesn't need to be accurate. In fact, it rarely is, but it needs to be admiring. And the second you stop providing that, the moment your gaze turns inward instead of outward, you become less useful to them. You become threatening. Think about how much effort narcissists put into managing impressions. They curate themselves in social situations. They exaggerate their accomplishments. They interrupt conversations to bring attention back to themselves. This isn't accidental. It's strategic. They're constantly seeking cues from others that affirm their superiority or specialness. And when they don't get it, their mood collapses. They become petulant, passive-aggressive, sometimes even hostile. Why? Because they are emotionally dysregulated. And without your validation, they're thrown into a psychological spiral they can't easily recover from. What does starving a narcissist of validation look like in practice? It means no longer playing into their emotional traps. When they fish for compliments, you don't bite. When they make an outrageous claim, you don't challenge it, but you also don't affirm it. You remain neutral, composed, even bored. This neutrality is deeply unsettling to them because it suggests you're not under their spell. And that forces them to confront the terrifying reality that they may not be as important as they think they are. It's important to remember that narcissists are often highly perceptive, not emotionally empathetic, but skilled in detecting weakness, social cues, and emotional openings. They'll test your boundaries. They'll provoke you. They'll try to guilt trip you or flatter you or manipulate you into re-engaging with their narrative. And you must remain vigilant. The more indifferent you appear to their highs and lows, the more destabilized they become. You're not responding to their emotional bait, and in doing so, you're dismantling the control they once had. This is especially difficult if you've been in a long-term relationship with a narcissist. You may have been conditioned to provide them with constant reassurance, to buffer their insecurities, to validate their every move just to keep the peace. It can feel unnatural, even cruel, to withdraw that validation, but that discomfort is the residue of the power they held over you. You are not being cruel, you are being free. And that freedom is a direct threat to their dominance over your mind. Now, some narcissists will escalate when deprived of validation. They may lash out, gaslight, or play the victim. They may accuse you of being cold, distant, or selfish. That's part of their playbook. They're not truly interested in your emotional needs. They're only interested in reestablishing control. Your job isn't to fix them, soothe them, or argue with them. Your job is to stay grounded, to resist the pull back into the chaos. The less you react, the more the narcissist is forced to sit with themselves. And for them, that is a deeply uncomfortable place. Without your validation, they are left with the reality of their own emptiness. And they will either escalate or retreat. But what they will no longer do, what they cannot do, is feed. Setting immovable boundaries with a narcissist is not merely a suggestion, it is an act of psychological self-defense. Narcissists are boundary violators by nature. They believe that your time, energy, emotions, and even your identity are extensions of their own will. They will push, prod, manipulate, and guilt you into surrendering parts of yourself, often in subtle increments, until you no longer recognize the line between your needs and theirs. That's why boundaries, clear and inflexible ones, are essential, not to punish them, but to protect you. A narcissist will rarely respect a soft boundary. If you say no with hesitation in your voice, they will hear it as an invitation to negotiate. If you express discomfort without certainty, they will exploit the ambiguity. This is not about misunderstanding, it's about control. They don't just test boundaries for the sake of closeness, they test them to see how much authority they can assert over you. Every time you compromise to keep the peace, you teach them that your lines can be redrawn. And once you've taught them that, they'll never stop pushing. An immovable boundary is not just a spoken rule. It is a standard you enforce without apology. You say, I will not tolerate being yelled at. And when they raise their voice, you leave the room. You declare, I need space when I'm overwhelmed. And when they chase you with demands, you turn off your phone. These are not negotiations. They are declarations of sovereignty. And narcissists find this intolerable. They are accustomed to bending others to their will, to making people doubt themselves through charm or intimidation. When you set a boundary and enforce it with consistent action, you introduce them to a world where their tactics no longer work. They will, of course, test you. That's inevitable. They may mock your boundary, accuse you of being too sensitive, or twist your needs into selfishness. They'll try to make you feel guilty, as though you're the one breaking some invisible rule of loyalty or love. This is classic narcissistic projection. They are not upset that you've set a boundary. They're upset that they're no longer in control of you. And their reaction is not proof that you're being unreasonable. It's proof that the boundary is working. It's important to note that narcissists often rely on emotional enmeshment. They blur the lines between themselves and others so thoroughly that your independence becomes a threat. They want to be the center of your psychological universe. So when you begin to set boundaries, especially firm, consistent ones, it sends a clear message. You exist outside of them. That is a destabilizing realization for the narcissist. It reminds them that they do not possess you, that you are a separate, thinking, feeling individual with your own rules. And nothing infuriates a narcissist more than the loss of that illusion. Boundaries are also mirrors. When you set one, you force the narcissist to confront something about themselves, something they would rather ignore. Your boundary implies that their behavior is unacceptable, that it has consequences, and that it doesn't align with how you expect to be treated. Narcissists don't like consequences. They like compliance. But when you set a boundary and pair it with action, you introduce accountability into the dynamic, and that is a form of torture to someone who has spent their life escaping it. Now, the challenge for many people isn't setting the boundary, it's maintaining it. Narcissists can be seductive when they want to be. They'll apologize, make promises, offer affection, or temporarily improve their behavior just long enough to lull you into lowering your guard. This is called intermittent reinforcement, and it's one of the most powerful psychological conditioning tools. When someone is kind only occasionally, unpredictably, the brain clings to the hope that the good version of them is the real one. That's the trap. A narcissist will give just enough to keep you hopeful, then violate your boundaries again the moment you relax. This is why your boundaries must be immovable, not based on their behavior, not dependent on your mood, and not up for debate. You hold the line every time, even when they cry, even when they rage, even when they say you're the only one who's ever truly understood them. Because the second you make a boundary conditional, you give away your power. And once they know your line can shift, they'll never stop trying to shift it. Boundaries are not acts of aggression, they are acts of clarity. They are statements that say, this is who I am. This is what I will allow. This is how I will live. And when you stand by them, you become untouchable, not because the narcissist won't try, but because they can no longer succeed. Speaking the truth precisely is one of the most powerful and disarming acts you can commit in the presence of a narcissist. They thrive in environments of vagueness, emotional manipulation, and psychological ambiguity. They use distortion, exaggeration, and selective memory to bend reality into a shape that suits their narrative. But the moment you introduce clarity, accuracy, and precision into the dialogue, you begin to dismantle the very illusions that sustain their dominance. Truth, especially when it is calmly and clearly stated, is like sunlight to a parasite. It exposes, it cleanses, and it burns. Narcissists do not operate well in a world where language is used with integrity. They rely on confusion and emotional intensity to override your rational thinking. If you confront them with general statements like, you're always selfish or you never listen to me, they will twist those words into accusations against you. They'll pick apart your phrasing, question your memory, or turn your frustration into proof that you are the unstable one. But if you speak the truth with precision, if you say, for example, yesterday during our conversation at 7 p.m. when I expressed how tired I was, you laughed and told me to stop being dramatic, you removed their ability to escape. You pin them down, not with emotion, but with undeniable facts. Precision forces accountability. It draws clear lines around behavior, intent, and consequence. Narcissists hate this because it removes the gray areas in which they manipulate. It denies them the ability to rewrite the story. When you are specific, you are grounded in reality. You become difficult to gaslight. You don't leave openings for them to distort your words or play the victim. You are not lashing out, you are observing, documenting, and stating what happened as it happened. And this creates a tension they cannot easily resolve. But it's not just about confronting them. Speaking the truth precisely also protects your own mind. In a relationship with a narcissist, your perception of reality can begin to erode. You start questioning yourself, your memories, your emotions, your instincts. This is the psychological damage of chronic gaslighting. But when you train yourself to observe clearly, to label experiences accurately, and to express them without embellishment, You strengthen your sense of reality. You regain your footing. You begin to trust your own mind again. Clarity in speech begins with clarity in thought. Narcissists love to provoke reactive, emotional responses. They want you to yell, to cry, to stumble over your words. Because when you are emotional, you are easier to discredit. But when you speak with calm, firm precision, you force them into a kind of cognitive corner. They may still deny, deflect, or rage, but the power of your truth remains intact. And more importantly, you remain intact. You become the anchor in the storm. This requires practice. Precision doesn't come naturally when you've been conditioned to walk on eggshells. You may have spent months or years filtering your words to avoid setting them off. You may feel that if you speak too clearly, they will retaliate harder. And in some cases, they will. That's why this strategy must be used with discernment and strength. It's not about fighting every battle. It's about choosing the moments when truth, spoken precisely, becomes a tool of liberation rather than just resistance. Narcissists often use language as a weapon. They reframe situations, deny statements, and redefine concepts in real time. If you say they were rude, they'll say you're too sensitive. Interrupt that process. You take the abstract and make it concrete. You turn feelings into facts, confusion into clarity. And in doing so, you begin to reclaim the narrative. This also means being precise with yourself. Notice the patterns, journal the incidents, record the specific behaviors, the exact words, the outcomes. This is not about obsession, it's about countering distortion with reality. When you articulate what's happening with honesty and exactness, you can no longer be gaslit into believing it's all in your head. You become a witness to the truth, both for yourself and in your interactions with the narcissist. The challenge is that truth often comes with consequences. A narcissist confronted with a clear and accurate account of their behavior will feel exposed. They may retaliate, project, or double down on manipulation, but that doesn't mean the truth wasn't worth speaking. What matters is that your words were chosen carefully, delivered without malice, and grounded in reality. That is strength. That is clarity. And that is precisely what the narcissist cannot control. Refusing to engage in a narcissist drama is not an act of apathy, it's an act of supreme emotional control. Narcissists are addicted to drama, not because they enjoy chaos for its own sake, but because drama gives them relevance. When things are calm, when people are grounded, when relationships are built on mutual respect, the narcissist feels invisible. In that kind of environment, there is no spotlight, no stage, and no audience, so they stir the waters. They provoke conflict, incite arguments, create confusion, and position themselves at the center of it all. And every time you get pulled in, every time you try to explain yourself, defend yourself, or calm them down, you feed the very dynamic that gives them power. They want your emotional energy. That's the currency of their control. If they can make you angry, make you cry, make you justify yourself or question your own judgment, they win. Because in those moments, the focus is on them. They are not interested in resolution. They are interested in reaction. So the most effective counter strategy is not to match their intensity, not to play their game, but to simply opt out of the game entirely. You become the observer, not the participant. This is not easy. Narcissists know exactly which emotional buttons to push. They study your insecurities, your fears, your guilt, and your desire to be understood. They will accuse you of things that aren't true, then demand that you explain yourself. They will say something cruel, then insist you're overreacting. They will pretend to be the victim, just to make you look like the aggressor. It's a pattern designed to disorient you, to make you feel like the only way to get peace is to give in, explain more, apologize again, or emotionally collapse. But the truth is, the more you engage, the more you lose. Disengagement does not mean silence out of fear or avoidance. It means staying composed and non-reactive in the face of manipulation. It means choosing not to respond to provocation with argument. It means refusing to clarify what they already know but pretend not to understand. It's a form of psychological aikido. You don't meet force with force. You let their energy fall flat against your calm. Narcissists don't know what to do with someone who refuses to dance to their emotional rhythm. It's like throwing a tantrum in an empty theater. Without an audience, the performance dies. One of the tools narcissists often use to create drama is triangulation, pulling in third parties to create confusion, jealousy, or competition. They might bring someone else into the situation, imply negative things that others supposedly said about you, or compare you unfavorably to another person. The goal is to destabilize you, to make you seek reassurance, to make you fight for your worth. When you engage, when you try to defend yourself or prove your value, you play right into it. But when you remain centered, uninterested, and detached from the bait, you become immune to their tactics. This refusal to engage isn't about pretending not to care. It's about choosing where to place your emotional investment. You don't owe your energy to every accusation, every lie, or every exaggerated crisis. You can acknowledge what's being said without stepping into the storm. You can say, I see what you're trying to do, and then walk away not to punish, but to protect your peace. And over time, that peace becomes intolerable to a narcissist because drama is how they avoid facing themselves. The absence of your reaction creates a mirror. It forces the narcissist to sit with their own emptiness, their own emotional volatility without a scapegoat. And in that stillness, they begin to unravel. That's the hidden power of disengagement. It's not just a defense, it's a kind of exposure. Without your participation, the narcissist is left to confront the one thing they've been running from, the void within. When you detach from the drama, you also give yourself space to think clearly. You begin to see the patterns, the manipulation, the cycles that once seemed so personal. You realize it was never about you, it was about control. You learn to distinguish between what deserves your energy and what is simply a trap. And that awareness is the beginning of true freedom. You stop reacting and you start choosing. You stop explaining and you start observing. You stop participating, and doing so you reclaim your power. Watching without reacting is a discipline, a psychological posture that strips the narcissist of one of their most effective weapons, your emotional reactivity. Narcissists are not just interested in control for its own sake. They feed off your emotional energy because it gives them a sense of power, importance, and confirmation that they matter more than anyone else in the room. If they can provoke you, make you cry, make you angry, or make you lose control, they feel like they've won. But when you observe them with detachment, when you watch, take note, and remain composed, you cut off their emotional supply line. You deny them the drama they seek, and in doing so, you unmask the emptiness of their tactics. To watch without reacting is not the same as being passive. It is an active choice to respond with awareness instead of instinct. It means you see the game they are playing and refuse to move the pieces. You hear the provocation, but you don't take the bait. You see the manipulation, but you don't fight to correct the narrative. This frustrates the narcissist to no end. Their entire behavioral system depends on pulling you into a loop of reaction, conflict, apology, confusion, guilt, reassurance, a cycle that keeps you psychologically tethered to them. But once you step outside that cycle and begin observing instead of reacting, the spell starts to break. This approach takes mental discipline. You must train yourself not to answer every accusation, not to correct every falsehood, not to prove yourself right in every argument. The narcissist will say things that are outrageous, hurtful, or absurd. They will twist your words, misrepresent your intentions, and push your buttons with surgical precision. But every time you react, even if you're defending the truth, you give them control. You make the conversation about them. You return the spotlight to their performance. Instead, when you watch, you preserve your energy. You allow the narcissist to reveal themselves for who they are without your interference. You stop covering for them with emotional labor. This posture of observation also reveals patterns you may have missed before. When you're no longer caught in the emotional chaos, you start to see the predictability of their behavior. You notice how they escalate when they feel ignored, how they project their flaws onto others, how they spin victimhood to avoid accountability. You see how they manufacture crisis when peace threatens their sense of control. These patterns become visible only when you stop reacting long enough to look clearly. Watching brings clarity. Clarity brings power. Narcissists are often deeply uncomfortable when someone sees through them. Their entire persona is constructed to hide insecurity, emptiness, and a fractured sense of identity. When you react emotionally, you become part of their illusion, part of the emotional chaos they control. But when you remain calm, grounded, and observant, you send an entirely different message. I see you and I'm not afraid. That message is deeply unsettling to them because it means you are no longer susceptible to their tricks. It means you have become psychologically independent. There is also a dignity in choosing not to react. Narcissists want to drag you into the mud to reduce you to their level, to make you scream so they can call you hysterical, to make you angry so they can say you're the problem. But when you hold your ground with silence, calm, and stillness, you rise above their reach. This doesn't mean you don't feel the pain or injustice of the situation. It means you don't hand them your power just because they demand it. You feel it, but you contain it. You let the moment pass without letting it define your behavior. Watching without reacting can also protect your sanity. Narcissists create chaos so consistently that you can begin to doubt your own perception. But when you adopt the role of the observer, you stop internalizing their narratives. You stop believing that their version of reality is the truth. You become the one who sees clearly, who remembers accurately, who resists the pull of emotional distortion. This internal stability becomes a kind of armor not to shut you off from the world, but to shield you from being emotionally hijacked. In many ways, this is a form of emotional jiu-jitsu. You allow the narcissist to expend their energy, to throw their emotional weight around, while you remain steady and unmoved. Eventually, their tactics exhaust themselves. The drama loses its impact. The manipulation becomes transparent. And in the space they once occupied, you find your composure, your clarity, and your control. You've seen them clearly. You've watched without being swept away. And that vision, that unshakable stillness, is something they cannot touch. Starving a narcissist of attention is one of the most profound and effective forms of resistance. It is not loud. It is not confrontational. It does not involve argument or explanation. It is quiet, consistent, and deeply destabilizing to the narcissist's entire psychological structure. Attention is their lifeblood. Whether it comes in the form of praise, anger, fear, admiration, or even hatred, it feeds the illusion they work so hard to maintain. When you give a narcissist attention, you affirm their centrality. You reinforce the idea that they are important enough to deserve your emotional response. But when you withdraw that attention not out of spite, but from a place of clarity, you begin to dismantle the very foundation of their identity. This isn't about playing games. It's about no longer participating in a system that rewards toxic behavior. Narcissists are not necessarily seeking positive attention. In fact, they often prefer negative attention because it's easier to provoke. If they can't get admiration, they'll settle for outrage. If they can't be praised, they'll instigate conflict. Why? Because indifference is the one response they cannot tolerate. It says, you are no longer in control of how I feel. You are no longer the axis around which I revolve. That is psychological starvation to a narcissist. The reason this works is because narcissists are external creatures. Their sense of self does not come from within. It is entirely dependent on how others respond to them. They need mirrors, people who reflect back to them a distorted sense of superiority, importance, or victimhood. Without those mirrors, they begin to feel invisible, irrelevant, and vulnerable. So when you stop reacting, when you stop explaining, when you stop feeding the cycle with your attention, they are forced to face the silence. And in that silence, their carefully curated self-image starts to fracture. Withholding attention doesn't mean being cold or hostile. It means becoming emotionally neutral. It means refusing to engage in the highs and lows they try to manufacture. When they provoke you, you don't respond. When they flatter you, you don't lean in. When they create drama, you don't amplify it. This neutrality is not weakness, it's strength in its purest form. It's the strength of self-possession, of knowing that your value is not determined by their perception. It's the strength of someone who has seen the game, understood the rules, and simply decided not to play. Of course, narcissists will escalate when you begin to withdraw attention. They will accuse you of being distant, selfish, cruel, or ungrateful. They may even become temporarily more charming, as if they've suddenly seen the light and want to reconnect. But this is not transformation, it's desperation. They sense that their supply is slipping away, and they'll do whatever they can to lure you back in. If that fails, they may turn to others, triangulate, or smear your name. These are all attempts to regain control, to pull focus back to themselves. And your job is not to stop them, your job is to stay emotionally disengaged. The beauty of starving a narcissist of attention is that it reorients your focus. Instead of constantly monitoring their moods, their needs, their manipulations, you begin to pay attention to your own life. You start investing energy in your own goals, values, relationships, and healing. The space that was once occupied by managing them becomes available for your own growth. And in that shift, something profound happens. You begin to reclaim your sense of self. It also teaches you something essential, that you do not need to fix, fight, or change anyone in order to be free. Your freedom lies in detachment, in choosing where your energy goes, in deciding what and who you will no longer validate with your attention. This is not about punishing the narcissist. It's about protecting your mental and emotional sovereignty. It's about becoming a person who does not respond to chaos with chaos, but meet manipulation with justification, who does not confuse reaction with responsibility. There is an almost spiritual stillness in this kind of disengagement. It says, I see you, I understand what you're doing, and I choose not to participate. That choice made consistently, without drama, without explanation, is powerful, because it forces the narcissist to face a reality where they are not the center.
And that was Jordan Peterson. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that determinism is optional.
Did you know using your browser in incognito mode doesn't actually protect your privacy? Take back your privacy with IPVanish VPN. Just one tap and all your data, passwords, communications, browsing history, and more will be instantly protected. IPVanish makes you virtually invisible online. Use IPVanish on all your devices, anytime you go online at home and especially on public Wi-Fi. Get IPVanish now for 70% off a yearly plan with this exclusive offer at ipvanish.com/audio.